Hi and welcome to Terry Talks Movies. This time around, I've got the October haul from Imprint and Viavision, and there's some pretty good stuff here. So, of course, being an October haul, there is a lot of horror in it. Some of it isn't horror, but that's kind of okay. I think we're a little bit over horror, having gone through October now, and everybody on YouTube is talking about horror. But this lot, fantastic. Love it all. I'm going to start with the TV things because there are two different box sets of television stuff that Imprint / Viavision have put out. This is the first TV Movie of the Week collection that Imprint have put out. It has 3 television movies from the 1970s, 1971 to 1973 it says. You got to remember, this is American mainstream TV of the 1970s. It's not going to have the production value of movies. And in this one we get 3 movies. The Deadly Dream with Lloyd Bridges and Janet Leigh. Age-appropriate casting there, so thumbs up for that. Scream Pretty Peggy, which includes Bette Davis in the Bette Davis older role. And the unsuccessful pilot for a TV series starring Leonard Nimoy, a thing called Baffled, which I have watched. Haven't watched the other 2 yet, but I've watched Baffled, and it's quite fun. So there's your box. On the back, you get that, which is the usual back, and the card comes off. And when the card comes off, it's got the 3 movies and their details done in the style of a television program guide from the 1970s. Now, here is the card with all the extras on all 3 movies, and I'll hold that up and freeze frame it for a while so that you can see all the extras there. It's an interesting thing that Imprint are doing here, because there are some really hitting television movies that were made in the 1970s. There was another one with Lloyd Bridges called The Love War, which is a science fictional one, which I've talked about on the channel before. That one, were it to come out in this kind of format, would, I think, be a hit. So there's your box, usual cigarette box. I'll read you the blurbs off each so you can get a bit of a feel for the movies. Scream Pretty Peggy. This one stars Ted Bessel, who was in That Girl with Marlo Thomas, Sean Barbara Allen and Bette Davis, directed by Gordon Hessler, who did Scream and Scream Again. Good director. And the blurb says, college student and aspiring artist Peggy takes a housekeeping job at a mansion where a sculptor Jeffrey lives with his elderly mother. Things get hopelessly strange when Peggy discovers a third resident, Jeffrey's hopelessly insane sister. Not very nuanced about mental health there, but it is the 1970s. So you've got that one. The blurb for The Deadly Dream is, scientist Dr. Jim Hanley, played by Lloyd Bridges, experiences recurring dreams of being pursued by a mysterious tribunal for something he's not aware that he's done. Hanley soon realizes his dreams may have become his reality. So you've got Lloyd Bridges, Janet Leigh, Leif Erikson, Don Stroud, Richard Jekyll and Carl Betts, directed by Alf Cagellan, who was a good, solid television director of the time. And you've got that. Now, Baffled is the one I've seen. Baffled was directed by Philip Leacock, an English guy. It was filmed in England. And there's the alternative cover art for it. Tommy Kovac is a hard-nosed racing driver till a sudden supernatural vision causes a near-fatal accident. He is further shaken from this bizarre event when Michelle Brent, played by Susan Hampshire, convinces him the visions he experiences are highly significant and takes him to the real-life manor from his vision, which is in Devon. That one is a bit of fun. It takes a while for the plot and the chemistry between the leads to really hit, but it does toward the end of it. Susan Hampshire is quite cute as Michelle. You've got a good supporting cast in there as well. Rachel Roberts is in there, playing the lady who owns the house and rents out rooms, and some other supporting characters you might know as character actors. People like Christopher Benjamin and Gerard Reese, who was in The Hands of the Ripper for Hammer Horror Films. Inside that one you've got that, and the disc. Baffled, apart from the fact that it's got a really naff title, is a bit of fun. We made an interesting TV series where Leonard Nimoy, playing Kovac, has a vision about somebody and he has to find them and help them with whatever the problem is. It wasn't a bad concept for a series, but it didn't go to series. I'll have a look at the inside of Scream Pretty Peggy. There's Betty Davis. This is at a time where Betty Davis did a whole bunch of interesting things. She did a television movie with Robert Wagner called Madam Sin, where she plays a kind of female Fu Manchu. Lots of good stuff in her later career. And Inside the Deadly Dream, which again is a pretty prosaic title, there's Lloyd Bridges and Janet Leigh there. I mean, these are basically nostalgia movies for people who saw them in the day, or people who have a deep interest in television movies that American networks put out in the 1970s. And there was a hell of a big industry doing that too, because at least two of the television networks at the time were putting these things out weekly for like 16 to 26 weeks of the year. And so there was a lot of need for actors and product and scripts and things like that to come out, because they were pumping these things out fast and hard in Hollywood. So there's that. And I think it's a nice path for Imprint to go down, because there are a number of these movies, and if they can get the rights and if they can get decent originals of them, and by the way, the original on Baffled is very good. It's in 1:66:1 aspect ratio, which means it doesn't quite fill a widescreen, but it fills it almost to the edges of the screen. But yeah, that one was fun to watch. Like I said, it takes a little while to warm up, but when it does, it really has some interesting things to say about the supernatural, and it was quite enjoyable. The other thing we've got, which is actually movie versions of double episodes of a TV series from the 1960s that ITC put out. It's a TV series that kept turning up for a while, for decades in fact, at about 5 o'clock in the morning on Channel 9 here in Australia. It's a TV series called The Baron, and these are the two feature films based on that particular series. Stars Steve Forrest, who by the way was the brother of Dana Andrews from Laura and Night of the Demon, as a guy called John Mannering, who's an antique dealer who also deals in danger. He has an assistant played by Sue Lloyd, really fine character actress, very beautiful as well. And this 3-disc set is the two TV movies, plus there's an extra disc highlighting and featuring Sue Lloyd's career doing these kinds of TV series. Here's the first one, The Baron, the Man in the Looking Glass. There's the back, and there's The Baron Mystery Island. There's Steve Forrest in that one. There's Steve Forrest in that one. And the third disc is Sue Lloyd at ITC, which has some episodes of various TV series in which she featured. The first one is The White Rat from Gideon's Way TV series, a black and white police procedural series that ITC did in the early 1960s. Something for a Rainy Day, which is an episode of The Baron. Island of Chance, which is an episode of The Saint with Roger Moore. And Blackout, which is an episode of Department S, which of course had Peter Wingard in it. I've got the box set of Department S up there. And there are also a number of extras on it as well. Audio commentary on The Baron, Something for a Rainy Day by Sue Lloyd and director Cyril Frankel from 2004. And a photo gallery. So that's an interesting inclusion. But you get a bit more. The Baron was based on a series of novels by John Creasy, and there's a booklet about the Baron and Steve Forrest and the production in general. Let's find a nice picture, because there's a promotional image there of Steve Forrest and Sue Lloyd there. Sue Lloyd was also in The Stud with Joan Collins about a decade later. There is the back card. And underneath it, there's always an interesting image. So there's your image from underneath the back card. I always put these into the box after I've reviewed them. If I put them on the shelves with this on the back, I'll pull out things from the shelf next to it, and this card gets messed up. So I always slide them into the box, and that works well for preserving the card itself. So between these two, Imprint really covers television nicely in the October releases. On to the individual movies that Imprint's releasing this month. I'll do the two box sets I have last because I think they're the cherry on the pie. But the first one is a movie from 1982, which stars James Horton, Albert Salmi, Lynn Carlin, directed by James Robertson. It's a thing called Superstition. This is one I don't know anything about. If I've seen it back in the day, I don't recall it. It says in 1784, Alondra Sharrock is condemned a witch and sentenced to death by crucifixion. But as Satan's daughter, her soul cannot be destroyed and lurks in the lake known as Black Pond. Now, 200 years later, the young Reverend David Thompson and his family moved to the vacant house on the lake, where Alondra's demonic spirit emerges from the dark depths to seek vengeance. Sounds good, worth a go. There's the very religious iconography of the alternative artwork. There's your back cover. This is one of those obscure horror films that Imprint is really good at finding. And it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. I will watch it. It's got a number of good extras on it, including a video essay by Kat Ellinger. There's an interview with the actor James Horton, and an interview with the director and TV spots, and an audio commentary by Justin Kurzweil. So, a bit of a slasher film. 1980s slasher film. I don't recall it at all, but I think it'll be fun to watch. The next one's from 1982, a movie called Death Valley, which is not to be mistaken for Death Valley Days, a TV series starring Ronald Reagan. It stars Paul Le Mat, Catherine Hicks, Stephen McHattie, who is a great actor, and it was directed by Dick Richards. It says here, what starts out as an ordinary vacation, there are so many movies that start like that, what starts out as an ordinary vacation into Death Valley becomes instead a nightmare from which the travellers neither awaken nor flee. Their relationship to one another, their sanity, and finally their very lives become the targets of fiendish insanity in a huge surrealistic landscape where there is no place to hide. Another horror slasher film. There's your other cover. There's your back. Our extras are already a commentary with director Dick Richards, Sliced and Spiced, the rise of the slasher subgenre and the fall of the studio slasher film, a video essay by Garrett Gahan, Strings and Screams, an interview with the composer Dana Kaproff, a TV spot and a theatrical trailer. So, again, one of these obscurities that probably got a VHS release back in the day, but didn't get much traction here in Australia. I'm glad that Imprint's highlighting these films because slasher films have got a lot of fans, like horror films do in general. And so they should do okay with that one. The third one I watched back in 1974 because it was released here in Australia in a truncated version. I think we got the American version, which doesn't have the bit at the start with the charismatic religious cults and things like that in it. It's an Italian movie directed by Alberto De Martino. And some people see it as an Exorcist ripoff. It came out a year after William Friedkin's The Exorcist, and a lot of movies came out with demonic possession in them then. But this one has a really Italian spin on things. It's a movie called The Antichrist, not to be mistaken for the recent film The Apprentice. And I've got to put my fingers over there because there are boobs behind there.
Dusty substances.
This one's a really intense Italian supernatural movie. It stars Carla Gravina as a young woman who, at the age of 12, was in a car accident that killed her mother. Her father was driving the car at the time. And she has partial paralysis. She hobbles around with a walking stick. She gets possessed by the devil. And the devil liberates her from her infirmity and also from her, let's just say the words, involuntary celibacy. Her father, played by Mel Ferrer, is concerned about her, obviously, and his brother is a bishop, played by Arthur Kennedy, who gets an exorcist to help her out. It's also got Ali DeValle as the housekeeper. She, of course, was in The Third Man, and George Coulouris. Wonderful film. I liked this one when I first saw it, and I like it now. It's got some very surrealistic, demonic orgy scenes, kind of marginal special effects, but it's very Italian. It's got that Italian, deeply Christian iconography to it. The mansion in which the family lives is full of statues and things like that. And it's got this crazy climax in the Colosseum in Rome. And that's kind of cool because the only other movie I know that has a good ending in the Colosseum is Way of the Dragon with Bruce Lee. But to have an exorcism movie that ends at the same venue is kind of wild and kind of weird. Now, there are a lot of extras on this one, and rightly so. There's a lot to say about this bit. And I think it's much, much more than just an exorcist ripoff. I think it goes deep, and it's so culturally grounded in Italian Christianity, where there are a number of different Catholic cults, and we see some of them in the movie. Really great. I will freeze frame on those extras there and let you look at them, because I think they're worthwhile. I've already watched 2 of them and they are very, very good. Inside we get alternative artwork, which is fisheye lens kind of stuff. There's your back cover. Inside we get Mel Ferrer and Carla Gravina in her madness. There you go. You can see the disc. I can show more than I can show the cover of the slipcover. Not sure what YouTube has against boobage, but they do, so I've got to go like that. This one I recommend if you're into demonic possession movies and if you're into Italian genre cinema of the 1970s. This one I recommend highly. Italian cult film, well made by Alberto Di Martino. Really great soundtrack by Bruno Nicolai and Ennio Morricone. So, you've got a thumbs up on that. Check that one out if you haven't. Real big recommendation from me. Then we've got the 2 horror box sets, which are definitive. I'm going to risk it for the biscuit. I'm going to say they're definitive. This one created the found footage genre. Whether you consider that a good or a bad thing is up to you. I think it's like any other genre. There are going to be good ones, there are going to be bad ones. It is the Blair Witch Project collection. Blair Witch 1 and Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows from 1999 and 2000. A lot of people say the second one isn't any good. I kind of enjoyed it when I was watching it back in the day. Not as much as I enjoyed the first one with the various low-res cameras. People are saying, why didn't they release this on 4K? You don't want the Blair Witch Project on 4K. The cameras it was filmed on aren't anywhere near 4K definition, so it'd be totally pointless to do that. I do the freeze frame on the back so you can see it, and I'll try to find some spooky music to put under that to build the ambience a bit. There's your iconic image of the first disc, the Blair Witch Project, which is hard to say. You should have titles of movies that are hard to say. There's your back cover. Inside, the hapless crew and the disc itself. A lot of people can be very dismissive of found footage horror movies like the Blair Witch Project. It's a genre. It's a movie. Let it stand on its own rights. Don't just dismiss it because it happens to fit in a certain pigeonhole. There's the image under the card at the back. And then we get Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2 Electric Boogaloo. Like the first one, it has a lot of extras on it. And of course it is in colour and much more high resolution. And there's one of the production stills, and there's your disc. I wonder how much of the hatred that Book of Shadows got was based on the fact that it wasn't grainy and amateurish like the first one was. Because people have certain expectations of these movies, and when a sequel comes out, they want it to be more of the same to a certain extent, but different, which is always a big ask. And the fact that the second one was filmed with much higher production values and a much larger budget and obviously better cameras may have cheesed off some people. There is an overseas release of this apparently, but for me, I'm collecting movies because of movies. I'm not collecting movies because of all the bells and whistles. They're really nice, and a lot of the extras on here contextualize movies really well for me should I choose to dive into it. But they're not my main emphasis in the films. My main emphasis is the movie itself. It's the gift, not the wrapping paper. This one's a decent version of this, and one that could sit on my shelf. I didn't have a copy of this, and I'm glad I've got a copy now. Last off is a movie, a remake, and the first movie and I have a history. I'm going to post up here the video I did about the first, Suspiria, and how much it messed me up when I was very young and going through some rough times in my life. I did a whole video about it. And then Imprint have just released the 2018 remake of Suspiria by Luca Guadagnino, starring Dakota Johnson and Tilda Swinton, and I hadn't seen this before. I watched it today. I'll go through the box set itself, and then I'll tell you what I thought of the movie. On the back you got that and the tagline, "Give your soul to the dance," which I think is the same tagline as "Thank God It's Friday," but I could be wrong. Underneath we have, I can show that, a number of the dancers. Inside we have the 4K with alternative artwork. I love this artwork. Really fantastic artwork there. Love the look of that. There's the back. 4K doesn't have a picture inside it. Here's the Blu-ray version of it, and Dakota Johnson and Tilda Swinton on it. There's the back, and there's a lot of extras on both discs. The Blu-ray and the special features on this. So 2 discs on this one. So there's 2 discs there. And I'll slip out the artwork. Yep, I can show that. There's Tilda and Dakota. And there are also art cards. There's a little slip cover. Oops. There's a little slip cover for the art cards. And I kind of like that format for putting the art cards in, because loose art cards are a bane in my life when I get box sets. There's Tilda as Madame Blanc. There's Angela Winkler as Miss Tanner, one of the teachers at the dance school. Chloe Grace Moritz as Patricia, who appears at the start and the end of the movie. Dakota Johnson as Susie, the main focus of the film. Lutz Eversdorf as Dr. Klemperer. You have Mia Goth as Sarah. Mia Goth's in this one. And Renee Sortenjik as Miss Hula. By the way, in showing those pictures, I avoided a spoiler. And I don't want to see the spoiler in the comments, please. I want people to come into this and just let it unroll as it is. So what did I think about the movie? I liked it. The editing on this is fantastic. The cinematography is terrific. The direction is wild. It's set in 1977 in divided Berlin, so there's still the Berlin Wall there. And Susie, the young woman played by Dakota Johnson, goes to audition and then become a part of our women's dance collective, which has been going since before World War II. And they've done some like world-class dances. It's the best of dancing schools. And all of the women who are teachers or the artists in this collective live in-house. They get free accommodation. Their food's supplied as well. And they all live together. And what we find as the movie progresses is that the school is actually a coven of witches. And that then leads to the rest of the plot playing through. And this innocent, played by Dakota Johnson, is enmeshed in it. And the witches use dance as a medium for casting spells, let's say. Really interesting film. My only problem with this film, Dakota Johnson is such a passive actress. Her character goes through an arc as the movie progresses, and that arc needs to be reflected in the acting of the lead character. And for me, it's simply not. She is the most passive of actresses. She doesn't seem to be making an effort in the acting. Yes, she trained for a couple of years to be able to do the bits of the dance that she did, and all credit to her for that. But there's no riz in her acting, and I find that a little bit disappointing. The other characters, Mia Goth, of course, in a breakthrough role, is great playing Sarah, and Tilda Swinton is fantastic as well. And the guy playing the old man who investigates one of the missing girls, who's a psychiatrist, is terrific as well. The movie is transgressive. There are some really ick bits in it, which really are full on. When the magical spells are cast, it's very confronting stuff. And the climax is mad in the best possible way. And there is an upshot at the end of it, which would have worked better had there been a stronger actress in the lead role. But I like this. I mean, everything else but Dakota Johnson in this film is chef's kiss good. And I'm glad I got a copy of it. Looks fantastic in 4K. Really impressed with it. The editing in particular, and there is one of the extras is about the editing. There is an interview with the editor, and the cross-cutting used in the editing, and just the way the editing punches like that, is beautiful. The more you think about the way the film is put together, the more you're going to enjoy this film. Now, the director, Luca Guadagnino, also gave us challenges recently, so he's also made Queer, the adaptation of the William Burroughs novel with Daniel Craig, which I'm looking forward to seeing. But this one really works. In fact, let's see if I can hold these fuckers up. So there they all are. Fantastic month this month from Imprint. There is one box set featuring a director that I didn't get a copy of because, to be honest, I could not, in all honesty, treat that director fairly because of his real-life action, so I didn't ask for a copy of that one. People can look it up, people can find out what it is, and they'll understand why I'm doing that. I've got to come into reviews, honestly, and if I can't review unbiased box set by a company like Imprint, I'll simply not request it. I have no problem with them putting it out, but it's not for me, and there is a line across which I won't go. Loved all of the things I've seen so far. I'm going to enjoy the rest of them. I want to dip into some episodes of The Baron. Also want to dip into the Department S episodes because I haven't watched one in a long time. Yep, those two I'm going to dip into and just have a bit of fun with. So let me know what you think of these, because there's some great stuff there. The Suspiria, I think, works really well. Blair Witch Project, iconic horror film, whether you like it or not. You've got to admit it's had a big impact on the genre. It's a good month, and it's a good month for horror fans in particular. So much good stuff came out in October for horror fans that they're going to be watching them until March. So that's what I got for you this time around. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You can donate to the channel through YouTube. You can donate and become a channel member, or you can become a patron at patreon.com/TerryTalksMovies. Next up, I've got Science Fiction Saturday, which is a great one. And until then, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies, watch some horror films, even though it isn't October anymore. And I'll catch you next time.